Welcome back to Yaffe Live. I'm Yaffe, obviously. At this point, I've been here over a year. You should know how to spell it. But if you don't, that's all right. Maybe you're new. Yaffee. It's how you spell it. Yaffee. We got to talk some Tennessee politics right now on the show, and we will with Olivia Lupia. She is a reporter with the Tennessee Conservative. Of course, you can read her stuff and all the great news at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Olivia, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing good. I mean, there's a lot we have to cover that's going on in the Tennessee General Assembly, including a bill that I talked about recently that I really like the idea. It's a bill that would require Tennessee public schools teach success sequence, and it passes in both chambers of the Tennessee General Assembly. Talk about this.
Yeah, so this is a really great bill. That's going to require that built into the state's family life curriculum, they now teach what would be called the Success Sequence Act, which is going to talk about like keys for getting kids on the right track. So
Yep.
It would show that, kind of teach which anyone who has paid attention really understands this, but that steps to a successful life, start with high school, and then you go on to either higher education or getting a job, whichever path you choose, and then get married, and then having children in that order keeps like 97%, 98% of people on the right track, keeping them above poverty and middle class or higher. So surprisingly, there is an order of events that works. We just have to use it. So now this is going to be taught to kids all across the state, which is super exciting.
Yeah, it's a little sad that it passed both the House and the Senate along party lines. I guess Democrats are calling it indoctrination?
Right. Their new favorite word, I'm sure. I like how it's never indoctrination when we're talking about, LGBTQ or drag queens or any of that. But when we talk about how to put yourself on the path to success, we're clearly indoctrinating everyone. But I don't know that it's a surprise that it passed along party lines, but still disappointing nonetheless.
Now, do we know if the governor is going to sign this? Have you heard anything?
I cannot tell you for sure. I think it would be pretty silly if he didn't. I can't think of any reasons off the top of my head why he would object. I know he's been waffling over some other stuff, particularly like with the illegal immigration, which that's not a surprise, but I'm not sure how this would not be an easy win for him. So hopefully I will not be proven wrong on that count.
Yeah, this is one of those bills, at least I think, where you look at it, it's like, well, this is common sense. I mean, shouldn't really even be controversial. It's unfortunate that somehow it is in 2025 America. I mean, right? I mean, it just seems like common sense to me.
Yeah, it really is. Well, and honestly, you would think that this was what should be the default anyway. It kind of surprised me that this has to be, that we needed to create legislation to teach this when there's, not even just scientific evidence, but you can just open your eyes and look around and see that that's what works. So very interesting that we needed it, but I'm going to say a good thing we have it. And I think too, which is funny, and I'm not sure that why the Democrats are getting their britches in a twist, but because I believe also parents have the opportunity to opt out. So I don't know why any parent would want to do that, but I also believe there's an opt-out option. So this to me is a kind of a no-lose situation here for everyone.
Britches in a twist. That is old school saying right there. Speaking with Olivia Lupia, she is with the Tennessee Conservative. You can read that story and more at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. You had mentioned that maybe the governor has waffled a little bit on some issues or some bills dealing with illegal immigration. And I know you got a story coming up on the website. It says human smuggling bill to address illegal immigration in Tennessee passes the House committee. So it's kind of making its way through. What is in this bill?
So this is a really interesting one. And this session, I have to say, overall is very interesting because this is the first time that I can think of in recent history that the legislature is actually dealing with illegal immigration with any real effort. I guess we'll say that. So there's been some very interesting bills coming down the pipe, and some of them have been killed. Some of the weird ones are going through, but this one is kind of twofold. It firstly gives the Attorney General more tools and authority to combat human trafficking. So this is going to allow the Attorney General to potentially shut down a business or appoint a receiver for a business if they suspect that that business or an individual tied to that business is involved in human trafficking. So that's a really good thing, just to be able to crack down on that art. And that part of the bill looks pretty solid in my opinion. But then we get to the human smuggling portion. So this bill would seek to create a new crime of human smuggling, which deals with people who are intentionally moving, transporting, hiding, trying to hide illegal immigrants from law enforcement. So theoretically, it's going to make it a Class A misdemeanor to help hide illegal individuals from authorities. There will also be felonies for the actual smuggling of these humans. Where it gets a little bit in the weeds for me is kind of two places. Is first of all, when you look at the bill, the crime of human smuggling only applies if this individual or business or whatever has transported 10 or more illegals, 18 or older, or 5 or more minors. So you can load your van up with 9 and still not be human smuggling.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, kind of a weird, I don't know who came up with that number and why. And then the other kind of challenges that I am seeing with this bill is the bill sponsors through the committee process and as they're testifying, trying to gather support, not just from Democrats, which that's always questionable whether they're going to get anything from Democrats, but I think more aimed at kind of squishy rhinos, is they've been trying to be clear that this bill doesn't create criminal liability for individuals or charitable organizations in a bunch of different arenas. Like if an individual or that organization provides an illegal with transportation without a commercial advantage or private financial gain. So they can still transport them, but as long as they don't charge the illegals, it's okay. There's another provision that they're touting that says it doesn't create a criminal liability if they provide the illegal transportation with the intent to conceal the individual from law enforcement. So the whole point of the bill creates a crime for transporting illegals to hide them from law enforcement, but they're saying they're not going to create a criminal liability. So this is a really kind of sticky one for me. There just seems to be some wonky stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the thinking behind some of what you just said. Like what is there? Have they even said? Like have they said what the purpose is for some of those provisions that seem to be counterintuitive? Or do you think it's just because they're squishy rhinos, as you put it?
I think that has a lot to do with it. Is our legislature unfortunately has this just torrentially terrible, I don't think that's the right word, but horrible track record of they'll pass these illegal immigration bills, which sound great kind of on paper, but when you look at them, they don't really have any teeth. For example, one that's kind of working its way through right now is which would allow the schools to unenroll illegal students if they can't prove that they're here and or charge them tuition. Well, it doesn't require that they do that. All it does is give them the option. So again, there's not really any teeth, and there's some semantic stuff with that because theoretically they're trying to challenge the Supreme Court case, which requires that all children be given free education, et cetera. So there's a little bit different scenario there, but even if our bill is allowed to stand as it is, should the Supreme Court overturn and all that stuff, it says may. So again, and they killed the bill. Janice Bowling, I believe it was, ran a much stronger bill that required that they be disenrolled and required that citizenship must be checked to enroll in school, and they killed that bill. So again, I'm just not 100% sure, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I haven't necessarily spoken to the to the sponsors themselves, but I do believe this bill raises some questions about, well, if we're negating our own bill with the provision saying we're not creating liability, I'm not really sure what this bill accomplishes outside of the human trafficking.
Yeah, there's been a lot of debate over the other bill you were talking about where you could charge tuition to illegal immigrant students. It is true that was one of the problems I had with it, where it didn't have any teeth. So a lot of the local school boards are just not going to participate. But of course, I talked about it on the show this week. You had some churches, some pastors come out and say, well, it's not the Christian thing to do. The Christian thing to do would be to have a public school teach illegal immigrants. And I'm like, I don't think Jesus preached about forcing public institutions to pay for illegal immigrants. I don't think that's it. But you see a lot of that talk around. I'm speaking with Olivia Lupia. She is with the Tennessee Conservative. And Also, there's another bill dealing with illegal immigration, a bill to hold charitable organizations liable for crimes committed by illegal immigrants. That passed a House committee. What's the latest on this?
Yes. So here's another one where we can talk about twisting scripture so far out of context it doesn't,
Yeah.
doesn't
Exactly.
make sense
Yep.
anymore.
Yep.
But so this bill would basically seek to hold any, NGO or a charitable organization who is harboring an illegal in the sense of helping them attain long-term housing. So if the organization themselves is providing that long-term housing, or they're connecting or helping to facilitate transactions like getting a lease or an apartment or anything like that. So if that illegal commits a crime while they're being aided by this organization, it would create standing for the victim or the victim's family or other people to be able to sue that organization, which I think is a great idea because theoretically it's going to bring more accountability to these NGOs or these charitable organizations who a lot of times are literally helping illegals obtain leases or move into houses or do all sorts of things or providing them long-term, shelter basically. And then these people are out there committing all sorts of horrendous crime up to and including murder or rape or all sorts of things. And there's no accountability for these organizations. ICE just scoops them up from law enforcement and, that's it. So there's justice there. So this is I think it's a solid bill. It looks pretty good. And of course you've got all sorts of immigrant advocates and all sorts of people coming out of the woodworks. I believe there was the testimony from the committee. Lindsay Crinks, I think is her name. She's the co-founder and director of advocacy for Open Table, who is an ordained interfaith street chaplain. So there you go. I said, it's the non-Christian thing to do. Like, okay, yes, I don't recall the Sermon on the Mount talking about harboring illegal immigrants, but okay.
Well, yeah, and it's like, I guess you could argue what the Christian thing would be to do is you can house them, you can feed them while you're calling ICE to deport them.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing. You have to follow the laws. You have to follow the laws. And as I mentioned before, they say it's about hate. It's like, it's not about hating illegal immigrants. A lot of conservatives even understand why they want to come here, but it's about the fact we have to protect civil society and protect the rule of law, which is, if you want to protect and enforce laws, that doesn't mean you're anti-Christian or something like that.
Exactly. Well, and understanding what, love is. It's not loving. If you see someone speeding off a cliff, the loving thing is not to step back and just let them do that wrong thing or something that could be harmful. Yeah. The loving thing is to try and get in the way. So this is an act of love to say we have to uphold and enforce the rule of law. So exactly what you said. Just because we choose to enforce the law doesn't make us unchristian.
Yeah, I know.
That's my favorite argument.
I know it's pretty laughable, but you see a lot of people making that argument. It's kind of crazy. Olivia Lupia, she is with the Tennessee Conservative. Read her reports and more at TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Olivia, appreciate you coming on. As always, we'll talk to you again in the future.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.